All right, I think we're live everywhere. Appreciate people joining. Everybody's joined so far. Tonight I'm doing another coding challenge from LeetCode.com. An easy problem called first unique character in a string. So join along if you want to see me do this problem in real time. I'm gonna try to work my way through it and bring y'all along for the journey. Hopefully I learn something. Hopefully you learn something. And I'm not gonna take too much time before I jump into this. I'm just gonna give people a couple seconds to jump in before I try to attempt this problem. Hopefully I can get through this pretty easy, but we'll see. So without further ado, I'm gonna jump into the problem. This is a problem from LeetCode.com called first unique character in a string. It's an easy problem, supposedly asked by Amazon, Bloomberg, and Zillow. That's the first time I've seen Zillow on here. And the problem goes as such. Given a string S, find the first non-repeating character in it and return its index. If it does not exist, the first non-repeating character, then return -1. So that's the problem statement. They have an example here, LeetCode actually, and the output is 0 because the first unique character in this string is L. That's the first character in this string that doesn't repeat again. It's the first unique one. And then in this example, love LeetCode, the first unique character is 2. The index of the first unique character is 2. So if you start at 0, 1, 2, then V is the first character that doesn't repeat again because L repeats again, 0 repeats again, O repeats again. But V is the first unique character that is nowhere else in the string. And then here, every character in this string repeats. A repeats, B repeats. So you return an index of -1 because there's no unique character at all in this string. And then there's some constraints down here. So it's saying that the length of the string, that the input string, is going to be greater than 1 and less than 10 to the 5th power. Of course, it's going to be greater than 1. It can't be a negative length. But it can't be 0. So that's an important constraint, that it's always going to have at least one value in this string. And then S consists of only lowercase English letters, that's a very important constraint. If you're in an interview or if you're just doing some coding somewhere, it's important to know what kind of characters you're dealing with because it can change the scope of your problem. So anyway, if y'all ever watched me do these problems before, you know I like to think through the solution first, maybe write it down, maybe not, but at least think through it in my head of how I would solve it, and then try to take that solution and apply it to code with data structures and algorithms that I'm familiar with from my experience or just from my studies. So when I think about this problem, first unique character in a string, the way I'm thinking about at a simple level of doing this is simply looping through this string or checking every character in this string. And so when I get here, I see L. I want to check the rest of this string to see if L is in here anywhere. So I would say, okay, I got L as my first one. Is L anywhere else in here? If it's not, then that means it's my first unique character if I check these characters in order. So in this case, I check L, I check the rest of each and every one of the rest of these, and I see that I get 0. I see that L is the first unique character, and the problem is saying return the index of the character you want. 0-based indexing means that L is 0 as far as its index. And for this one, let's do the same thing. I'm going to look at L first, and I'm going to check the rest of the string to see if I can find L. O, V, E, I found L. So I need to skip L. I look at O. I get here, I see O again, so I need to skip O. I look at V, which is at index 2. And I check the rest of the string. I actually need to check in front too. So LO, and then I check the rest of the string. Well, I guess I don't need to check in front because, yeah, I would have already stopped. So I just need to check behind. And I don't see any more V, so I know V is my answer. And then this one, I check A, I find another A. I check A, I find another A. I check B. Yeah, I guess we do got to check in front. I check B, I find another B. I check B again, I find another B. So that means the index is -1 because the problem basically says if I don't find a first unique character in the string, just return -1 to get out of the problem to give some sort of answer to the problem. So I know I'm talking fast. I'm trying not to be so slow with these. I'm trying to get through these a lot faster than I usually do. But anyway, so yeah, that's how I would solve it in my mind. So how can we take that to code? And I think I'm just going to jump over to the code and we're going to start doing it. So I'm actually going to copy this over. I forgot to do this. I usually do this before the problem. So just jump over to the code side. And then what I'm going to do for people that are joining, I'm going to put the problem statement here. I'm actually going to put the name of the problem here too, so we can all remember what the name of the problem is and what the problem statement is. So now we're in the code side. Let me make sure y'all can see this. Now we're in the code side. How can I solve this problem in code? So I know the first solution that comes to mind is basically checking the first character in the string and then checking the rest of the characters to make sure that there's no duplicate. Or yeah, if there's no duplicate in it, then I return the index of that string itself. And so the first thing that comes to mind is doing like a nested loop. So I could do something like, so this is how you do a loop in JavaScript. I'm doing JavaScript, by the way, for anybody that doesn't recognize this language. So this is how I can basically do a loop by saying let I equal 0, where I is less than the length of the string, and then I++ to iterate it. So this is how I can loop through this string. So my input is a string. I'm returning a number, which is the index. And I forgot to mention that this is the function that LeetCode gives to you to fill out to solve this problem. And so I could loop through this, and I could basically say, like this is my outer loop character here. I could basically say S at I. And then I could actually do like a nested loop. So I could say like I was saying when I was trying to do the problem before, I could basically look at the first character and then I could look at the rest of the characters on each interval. So if I go back here, this is like the first character. So this is like the current character that I'm checking. And then if I wanted to do a nested loop, I just copy that, change my iterator to something else. So I'm going to change it to J. And basically I'm going to say where I'm going to store inner loop character in a variable. And it's going to make sense what I'm doing here soon. And I'm going to say if outer loop, well, hold on. I want to say where I does not equal to J, because I don't want to check the same character again. I'm going to not do any of this unless I does not equal to J. Because I'm doing a nested loop, I don't want to check the same character again, where S is at J and where S is at I. So that's why I say only do this when it's not equal. So I skip the character that I'm currently on. And so then I would basically say if these are equal, outer loop char equals to inner loop char. That means it's not unique, I have a duplicate. So in that case, I'm trying to figure out how I would do this. So I really want to know if I have a duplicate, I don't want to do anything. But if I do, so yeah, if I get out of this with no duplicates, yeah, so let me see. I basically want to say, I want to create a variable here is unique. And I want to say it's false at first. No, I'm going to say it's true at first. And then here, if I find that this character has something equal to it in the rest of the string by looping through it here, then I basically want to change is unique to false. And so if I get, so then once I loop through the rest of the string, I'm going to check is unique again. If is unique, then I can return the index that I'm on, which is I. And so I can just break out here. If I get down here and I haven't found anything, I return -1. So I hope that makes sense to everybody watching. I know I'm going through it pretty fast. But yeah, this is my first thought solution. So this may not be the best solution, but this is my first thought solution. Basically, I loop through the string, my input string. I loop through every character in that string. So I get the first character out that I see here as I'm looping through, and then I set this variable to, I just assume that it's unique at first. And then here I'm gonna loop through the string again to compare with this first character. And I don't want to compare with the same character, of course, but if the character is different, then I want to look at that different character and compare them. If they're equal, then I know that this character up here is not unique. So its change is unique to false. And then after I loop through all the rest of the characters, I checked all the characters to see if something is not unique, or to see if it's not unique. Then I say if it is unique, then since I'm looping through these in orders, I know it's my first unique character, and I need to return, like the problem says, return the index. So I'm going to return the index of the first unique character. And so I think that works. This is because I'm looping here once. That's big O of n time complexity. So let's talk about the time complexity. And since I have a nested loop here, that means for every time I loop another n times. So it's called the length of this string here, n. I loop through n times, but for every interval in this loop, I loop another n times to find the copies or whatever, to see if there's anything that's equal to it. There's any duplicates. And so because of that, it's n times n. It's an exponential time complexity. So the time complexity for this would be big O of n squared, which isn't very good. And then the space complexity, I'm not storing anything that's related to the size of my input. I'm storing just simple constant variables. So the big O space complexity is just constant big O of 1, which is fine. So just run this against LeetCode. I might get this wrong. No, I got it right. So it worked. It ran in 94 milliseconds. It worked against test case 1, 2, and 3, which are those. These are just the test cases over here, if you're wondering. I'm not going to spend too much time on that, but I am going to run it against the rest of LeetCode and see how it compares to the rest of the people that have done this problem before. And see how long it's taking to run. It actually might fail because of the solution is very inoptimal. Yeah, time exceeded. So the code works, but if the input is super large, it doesn't work. It only works when the input is small. So time limit exceeded. But it will actually run on small test cases 1, 2, and 3. Because if you see, when I run it on test case 1, 2, and 3, it's accepted for all 3. Like I expected. So why did this happen? So let's put this down. How the heck do I get rid of this thing? This. Okay. So let's clear this out. I want to hold on to this part though. Actually, and then I want to clear this out. And I want to put it back up here for new people that are coming in, need to read the problem statement. So how can we do this more optimally? Where is it? Yeah, it's too inefficient, like somebody has said. I did this on purpose. This is a learning exercise. So if you're in an interview setting, you may get caught in a situation where you don't know the most optimal solution. And getting a solution down is better than nothing, and then optimizing it. So, and then somebody say better if you start J at I instead of 0. You still need to go back and check the characters before. So I'm not sure about that, but I'm gonna go through with a different solution. So, how can we do this more optimally? So the problem with the last solution is the big O time complexity was n squared because I was nesting loops. I was looping one time, and then for every interval, I'm doing a sub loop for every one. So it's exponential. For every n, I do a whole nother n loop inside of it. So it's n times n. For every n, I do another n iterations, if that makes sense. So that's n squared. It's very inefficient for just about any problem you're going to do in the real life, or even in an interview as well. So you want to do better than that. So how can I do better than that? I don't know if this is something you would get from intuition, but I think as you do these problems, you start to learn how to trade space for time complexity. So if you saw my last solution, used no space or use constant space. It used space, but use constant space. It didn't use any space as it relates to the size of my input. But if you use space, oftentimes you'll see in these problems, you'll be able to reduce the time complexity by using space. And so what I can do here is use a set or a map, not a set, sorry, use a map to store the frequencies of the characters in this string. And by storing the frequencies of the characters in this string, I'll be able to easily look through the frequencies and figure out the first time that I have a frequency of 1. If I have a frequency of 1, that means it's the first unique character, or that means it's a unique character, and I need to find the first one and return its index. So by storing the frequency, it'll allow me to loop through one time, store the frequencies, instead of every time I look at something, I go and check everything over again in the whole array. Like, it's just really inefficient. So let me just do it, because talking through it forever is just gonna probably confuse more than it helps. So in JavaScript, you can use a map, what's called a map, or you can just use for certain situations, you can just use an object and use it as a map. So what I'm gonna do is actually just use an object as a map this time. If you watched me before, a lot of times I do end up using a actual JavaScript map, but this time I'm gonna try to do something different. I'm just gonna use an actual object and use the keys in the object as I would a map. So let's set up a frequency map. I'm gonna call it a map, but it's just a JavaScript object. And so that's my map. And so what I'm going to do, like I said, is I'm going to have a loop again. I should have copied the loop from last time, so I don't have to type this over again, but it's fine. So y'all saw me do a loop the last time. I'm doing another loop. If you don't know what loops are in JavaScript or loops are in general, that's something to try to learn before you start to do these problems, of course. So I'm looping through. So I have a loop here. And so what do I want to check here? So first I want to populate this frequency frequency map with duplicates. So what will happen is, as I loop through this, what I need to check first is I need to check if my frequency map already has this. So let me just go back. As we know, when you loop through something, you can find the item in a string at that interval that you're at, I, by using this syntax, S, and then these open bracket, I, close bracket. So let's just get that out the way so you understand that. But what I can basically say is, I can do the same thing on the frequency map and say, do I have something inside of this frequency map already for SI, which is the character at this index that I'm on? If I do, then I basically want to take SI and increment it. And this is going to make more sense in the next line. If I don't have anything in here, it's no value at this key in frequency map, then I actually want to take it and populate it. I want to set it equal to 1, because it's going to be the first time that, and you actually can reverse this to make it make more sense to you. You can say if there is nothing in here, then put the 1 in there. You can do it like that, but I just did it the other way. So yeah, so I'm going to set it to 1. I'm going to set a value in it. And so the next time I find a duplicate, it's going to know something's in there here. And then it's going to just do plus plus, which is basically going to add 1 to whatever value's already in here. So by doing this, when I loop through the string here, I'll loop through, I'll say, is something in my frequency map already? If so, add 1 to it, because that means I have more than 1. If it's the first time I seen it, just make it equal to 1 to set this key in the frequency map, which is actually a JavaScript object. So I hope that makes sense to people. Some people saying it's easy, some people probably not. It just depends on what level you're at, of course. And so now that I have this, now I'll have a frequency map that has keys, and it will have a number that is the frequency for every character in my string. This is what this code will result in. So this code will result in an object that has a key for every single character in the string, and it will have an associated number, which is the frequency of how many times that character has shown up in this string. So once I have this, now I gotta remember what to do. So now I need to find the first unique character that's in this string. So how can I do that? So one trick, I actually use this as an interview problem for a lot of people when I'm interviewing, like they're at a lower level. One of the things people get tripped up on is how to find the first unique character. They try to like loop through the frequency map itself to find it, which is not the best way. The best way is to go in the order of the string, because you want to find the first one and you want to just break out then. You don't want to waste time looking at stuff that you don't need to look at. You need to go in order, because you only need to find the first one. Once you find the first one, don't worry about processing the rest of the stuff. Process till you get to the point that you find your answer, and then get out of the problem. Like, you want to optimize your solution. So what I can do is simply just loop again here. And notice, this is going to make sense for later. This is going to be important for later. Notice I'm not nesting anymore. I loop here and then I loop again. So I'm not nesting the loops anymore. So it's not the same time complexity as it was before. So I'm going to loop through this again, and I'm basically going to say if my frequency map has this in it and it's equal, the value of it is equal to 1, that means I just found my first unique character in the string, because its frequency is equal to 1. That means it's unique. It's only happened one time in the string. It only showed up one time. This character, which is this. This is how you pull the character out when you're looping. If I find that, then I need to return the index. Since I just simply looped this string again, I found the index. And this part right here is the biggest. Like, this seems like a really easy problem, but a lot of people mess up on this. I promise you. I interviewed people with this problem, like, I don't even know how many times. And people think it's super easy. They get through this part pretty easy. And because they're nervous or whatever the reason is, they did maybe not have seen this problem before, they just screw that part up. I promise you. But and then after that, if I don't find anything here, I don't find anything that equal to 1, that means there's no unique characters in the string. There's nothing that has a frequency equal to 1. So like my problem says, if it does not exist, return -1. So I'm going to return -1. This looks good to me. Usually what I would do in this case, I don't know if I'm going to do it this time, but usually what you would maybe have to do in an interview setting especially, they may not allow you to run this. They may have you just in a notepad. So you might actually have to trace through this code line by line with the interviewer. And it's probably something you should get in the habit of doing anyway. And so when you do that, a lot of times what I do is like keep track of like my frequency map. Maybe I'll go ahead and do this. I keep track of a frequency map. I got that all off. And then I keep track of like, I don't know, maybe I or something in this case, like where I'm at with I. Basically just keep track of all your variables here. And so if my, and then you also like have an input, what is string equal to? Let's say that it's equal to LeetCode. So I wish I had something shorter. But I'm gonna go with LeetCode. So if I had LeetCode L, I would basically have my frequency map that would be equal to this. To start off with, I would start looping through S, which is this string. The first thing in this string is L. So I would say, is it in my frequency map? No, it's not. I is equal to 0 at this point. And And then actually let's put what SI is at this point, because I think this might be confusing if you're not used to this. So at this point, L is the character we're looking at because we're at index 0. And so since it's not in here, I would basically make the frequency map for L equal to 1. So I would basically put in here this. I would say L, and I'm setting L as the key. The value of that key is 1. And then I would basically loop through the rest of this string. I would get to E. I would see that E is not in here, so I would also add E. Set it to 1. I would get to the next E because I'm looping through here. I would get to the next E. So I'm not actually updating my stuff here, but this would be E. And then I would get here because E is actually in here. So I would basically say add to E plus plus. So plus plus would just make this 2. Then I would go to index 3 as I go back to my loop again. Index 3 would be T. And then I would come in here and I would see that T isn't in here because T isn't in here. And I would go here and I would basically set T equal to 1. So I'm not going to go through the rest of this string, but basically what would happen is L would be the first unique character because it's the first thing in the string and it's unique. So we basically already know that it's our, well, we don't. We'd have to basically go through, I think actually we would know. Yeah, we'd have to go through the rest of the string to know that there's not another L. So we would have to go through the whole problem because there could be an L at the end or something. So you have to go through the whole problem you have to go through the whole string to know that there's not 2 L's. But once you get everything in here, you would notice the first one. And when you get to this code, you would loop through and you would find that for frequency at key L is equal to 1. It's your first one. And you will return the index, which would be 0 in that case. So that's a mouthful of information. I hope that makes sense. You would have to probably do this in an interview if they don't allow you to run the code. They might make you do it even before you run the code. And it's a good thing to get in the habit of because it gives you a deeper understanding instead of you just keep running and trial and error. That's what you do in a normal job, of course. But these type of problems aren't normal job type of problems most of the time. Most of the time, this will be abstracted away from the work you're doing. But in interviews, this is how some companies interview. They use these kind of problems. Some, not all. So I'm going to run this and see if it works. Yep, it worked. And actually it was slower than I thought it was going to be. So let me, I'm going to take out all this. No, I'm going to leave that in here. Let me make sure I did this exactly how I wanted to. Okay, yeah. So I got all these cases right. ABB, that should have gave me -1. And then this one should have gave me 2. And then this one should have gave me 0. So that worked. And I think I'm going to try to run it against LeetCode now and see what I get. Basically running it against all the other submissions in LeetCode. That ran pretty fast. If you notice, the last time I ran this, it didn't complete because it was so inoptimal. And yeah, I'm thinking the comments might be messing me up. I don't know. Let me just take the comments. I don't think they should affect it, but I don't think they've ever affected it. But this actually, the first time I did this, which was like a couple years ago, it actually ran like really fast. Like it ran faster than everybody else's on LeetCode, it felt like. But now people probably caught up. Yeah, so anyway. And it changes. Like when you run it again, it changes. But it beat 76%, which is actually pretty good. I didn't expect it to really beat much on memory because you're storing it in the map or you're storing it in the object. So it's going to be pretty obvious what the memory is. But this is pretty good. So, and it ran because remember last time my old solution did not run at all. It didn't finish. If the input was very big, it didn't finish. If the input was small, it didn't finish. So this is why you do these problems, because it's about the size of the input and making sure your algorithm is optimized for scale. When the input scales up, when the size of S scales up, does your algorithm fall over or can it run smoothly? And so let me go back to the big old complexity and then I'll probably maybe answer some questions or something and then I'll be done. So as opposed to my last solution, now I loop through the string once. So it's called the length of this string n. S dot length. Let's call it n, for instance. So this takes big O of n time complexity to run. I literally loop through the length of s. Then I loop through the length of s down here again, but as opposed to last time, it's not nested in here. So I'm not exponentially looping through or exponentially doing n operations. I'm just doing n operations here plus n operation here, not times n operations here. So that's 2n and not n squared. So 2n in big O notation will reduce down to just n. So this actually runs in big O of n time complexity. Basically, however long the string is how much that it will run, basically. Or technically 2n, but big O notation, we reduce. We don't care about like I could do this loop like 2 or 3 more times or something, and we don't, because it's constant. It's 2 times I'm running it. It's not n times I'm running. It's 2. So because it's constant, it reduces down to a constant that you can kind of throw away in big N notation, or sorry, big O notation. So this is in time complexity is big O of n. In space complexity, since now I have a frequency map that grows with the size of s, the length of s, then my space complexity, instead of being constant where I didn't have any map or anything before, now it's also big O of n. So like I said at the start of when I did this, I traded space complexity to reduce my time complexity. And you will notice as you go into harder problems and you go into more problems, you'll notice that that's a common trend where if you're finding out that you can't figure out how to make it faster, a lot of times it's just, more often than not, it's going to be like use a map. More often than not, it's going to end up, the data structure you need is going to end up being a map. More often than not. And just how you use the map may change and what you store in it. But most of the time, it's going to be a map. You'll find that these common things just keep coming up in these different kind of problems. And yeah, time complexity is super important. Most of the time, it's more important in space complexity these days because computers have so much more space to work with these days than they used to. But yeah, a lot of times time complexity is a lot more important in interviews and stuff like that. You're right. Now they will ask you for the space complexity. You should know what it is, and you don't want to let it go out of control, of course, because there can be issues with space complexity. Like if this grows extremely large, then trying to store it in this frequency, if this was like, what did they say that it was? So they said in the description, they said it was 10 to the 5th power. So what if this was more than that though? It was like, I don't know, 100 billion trillion, I don't know, some like unfathomable number. Then yeah, the computer might fall over it might not be able to store this variable. Like it might just like overflow or something like that. So it's still important, but it's just not as important as time complexity often, but it just depends. So yeah, I'm talking about time and space complexity. They're 2 different things. And what I did when the first time I had 2 solutions here, if you've been watching the whole video, and the first answer I did was it used barely any space complexity. It was constant big O, constant big O 1, constant space complexity. I didn't use any space as it relates to the size of my input. But it was a very bad on time complexity. It was big O of n squared. And now my optimized solution, I traded space for time. And so I use more space. I use big O of n space. But now my time complexity has went down to big O of n. So now both are in a good range. Whereas before, the LeetCode didn't even accept my answer because it was so bad on time complexity. It took too long to run. Time exceeded is the error I got. So yeah, man. Yeah, appreciate all the comments, especially on TikTok. Appreciate everybody that's watching everywhere. Somebody's in there saying they feel encouraged by people commenting to them or something like that, or maybe encouraged by the video itself. But I appreciate you watching. I'm glad you're encouraged. These problems can be really difficult when you're first starting out. I know this is an easy one. So for some people, I appreciate you hanging with me if you're bored or whatever. But everybody has to start somewhere, and these problems were hard for me at one point, even the easy ones. And some of the hard ones are still hard for me, and some of the mediums are still hard for me. But I just keep going. The more I practice these, I'm kind of getting a dual benefit from this, because I'm practicing these, I'm explaining it to you guys. That helps me get better at even the harder ones and the easy ones. Of course, I want these easy ones to come to me like I don't even have to think about them. Like if I get one of these in an interview, it's like I don't even want to be thinking about it. Like it's I know multiple ways to solve this problem, and I know what the trade-offs are in time, space, complexity. So it's it's a lot. Yeah, hards are hard for everybody. I got two hards in the interview. That sounded weird when I said that, but I got two hard problems in the interview, and it was you literally gotta know the problem, you gotta know the answer, and you will take you you got 45 minutes in the interview. It would literally take you to 40 minutes to code it out, just to code it out if you know everything. So hards are kind of stupid to me. You ask them in an interview and it literally takes the whole interview. It was one interview I knew the answer, I had done it before, and I still didn't finish it because it was like it took me so long to write it out. I had to practice just getting faster at doing it. It wasn't even a thing of me not knowing it. And so anyway, get comfortable. Yeah, if you get comfortable doing mediums, you're gonna be in a pretty good place. There's some companies that ask hards. I think Google is notorious for asking hard questions, hard leak code problems. Airbnb is one I know for sure asked a bunch of hard problems. I don't know why their interview's so crazy, or crazy compared to other companies, but it just is. So yeah, I would start with easy. Start conceptually, like learn the different concepts. I would recommend Algo Monster. That's what I used in the past that helped me a lot. Of course, LeetCode.com. Work your way up from easies. Start getting good at mediums, where you can just knock out the mediums really good. And start with the most common problems, like LeetCode. Oh, sorry, I like burped or something. LeetCode has these things where you can click on a company. And so if you got a company interview, definitely click on these. But it also has a way where it can order the most common problems based on how many times they show up in the interview. And when I tell you that the problems will show up, this is real. Use LeetCode if you have an interview with a big company that is on LeetCode. Use it. Do the problems in the order that they come up. They will show up in the interview. I have firsthand experience. They will show up in the interview. It may be some variation, and yeah, you might get unlucky. You might get one that you didn't do. But man, I did a few different interviews with big companies, and they showed up. The problems showed up in the interview. It was crazy. I couldn't believe it. So like whoever's going back on LeetCode and updating the frequency, it actually does work. Now, it's not perfect, but I'm telling you, it worked it was so many problems that I had just done because I did them in order of the company. So just a tip, man. Do it. I'm telling you, it's real. I have firsthand experience with some very large companies. So with the famous companies, I don't know who's on here, so I'm not going to be sharing all my business, but just trying to give y'all some tips. But yeah, we need LeetCode skills in your actual job. Yeah, the fundamentals you'll need. Now, will you be doing LeetCode problems in your job, and will you use everything you learn for LeetCode in your job? No, because LeetCode is trying to get down to the fundamentals and some things that have usually been abstracted away from your everyday work. So like you're gonna use some built-in function in the language that already is doing the most optimal way of doing what you're trying to do, like a sort or a find the first unique character. You're going to have something built into the language most likely, or built into the framework you're using. So it's not work that you would do every day, but there does come times when you might write code that you need to figure out what the complexity of it is, like the time complexity, where you can write some code that could take down, let's say there was a database call inside of this code, and you were doing an optimal algorithm because you had a database save call in the middle of this here, then you could take down a database because you doing n squared operations. You're doing 10 million operations when you could just be doing 10,000, because just the way you wrote the code. So it does matter to know this stuff at a foundational level. Do I agree with using LeetCode problems to interview devs? I'm not a big fan of it. The only reason I do is because you just have to know it if you want to interview for the larger companies especially. But even some of the medium size, like my company, we use LeetCode. They make me ask LeetCode at my company. So when I interview people, I have to ask LeetCode. And of course, in that case, I just memorize the ones I want to ask and then I ask them. But I also have to go out and practice my own too. So, yeah. What compiler do you use? Sorry, I'm missing some of the questions. It's hard to think and talk and read at the same. I'm not good at this yet, but I'm using JavaScript, so I'm not using a compiler. It's a interpreted language by the browser. So if you want to say the browser kind of compiles it, but it doesn't actually compile it, just interprets the language in real time. But I know Java, I know C++, I know C#. I've used a bunch of stuff over my career. I've been in the industry for around 10 years now. So I'm an old head in the game, but still trying to learn some new tricks. Because the jobs I went for didn't originally need data structure and algorithm. This was a new thing that Google, it's not new now, but back when I first started, it was relatively new. Only like Google was doing it and some of the other big companies. But once Google started doing it, now all the other companies start copying it. My company decided to start copying it. And so now I have to ask, every time I interview somebody, I have to ask some LeetCode questions. Do you have to be good at math to code? Nope, you don't. You don't have to be good at math to code. I'm not even gonna elaborate on that. You don't have to be good at math to code. I don't use math in my I said I wasn't gonna elaborate, but I don't use math barely at all in my job. Like, it depends on your job. It depends on the role, the company. Some companies, like a banking company, yeah, you might need to use a lot of math, but you don't need to know advanced math. Yeah, you need to know basic math, of course, but you don't need to know like advanced, crazy math to learn to know how to code. Like, and you can pick a specialization like front end development where you're not even really dealing with numbers. Now, if you go for like machine learning and you go for like AI, yeah, you might. If you go for gaming, oh heck yeah. If you try to build video games, yeah, you probably do need to be kind of good at math, but. Yeah, it depends. I guess somebody saying you had to be good at math for life. Yeah, like imagine what you're talking about good at life. When somebody says, do you need to be good at life for programming, they're most likely talking about, do you need to be like advanced level, like more than a normal high school education. Like if you have a high school education with math and you can, if you're decent at math in your life, like you can add and subtract and multiply and divide, like you'll be okay. Like you can use a calculator. Like you can Google at your job. Like if there's usually if there's some math thing that comes up to your job, you're just gonna Google it. If it's more complicated than like a math genius. No. But like that's a misconception about programming. Like you don't need to be. But yeah, I'm having fun answering some of these questions. Use TypeScript. Right. Yeah. Like. It depends on your front end dev, like you're not gonna, most of the work is gonna be done on the back end as far as like calculations, if that. But even a lot of, my company, we do chat and messaging. So we like provide chat for Verizon.com. If you have Verizon and you go on the website and you need to like chat, I work on that box that's in the corner, the little chat box that you type in and you're like messaging with somebody. There's like no math needed for it. It's a conversation. Doesn't need math. Now the AI stuff that we have in our system, I don't work on that team, but the AI stuff we have in our system definitely use some math and stuff. So, but I don't work in that department. So Python is a great first coding language. Is that true? Yeah, Python is great to start with. Python's a higher level language. And when I say higher level, I don't mean better or something like that. I mean, it's extracted very far from lower level languages that are more closer to the machine level code. So when I say that, to mean that Python is very easy syntactically. You don't have to type much to do the same thing you'd have to do in like C++, for instance. So it's a very readable language that's easy for first timers, and it's a cool language. It's in the machine learning space is very popular. I'd say between Python and JavaScript are like two of the best languages to learn. And I recommend JavaScript because this is JavaScript, yes. Because JavaScript is higher level, easier for a human to understand, yep. But I recommend JavaScript a lot because you can run it in a browser. And most people that aren't familiar with code, they actually are familiar with using a browser. And you can run JavaScript in a browser. So it's like an easy connect for people that don't know what code is. A lot of times when you talk about Python and other languages, you have to download a compiler. You have to download a special interpreter. And so you have to do, it's so many, like, it's barriers to even understand. But like with a browser, I can just open this console up here. And my computer is really slow. I need to get a new one. But I can just open this up. And I don't know what's wrong with LeetCode right now. It's got all these errors. But I can open this up and start typing JavaScript in here. Like, you know, I don't know. I could just create a variable in here. Like, that's, you can get started with JavaScript. Like, you don't even got to have anything. Like, you could just get started with it, like, from your browser. So that's why I recommend it. Because, and then you can build a visual website that you can see. And a lot of people get discouraged by programming when they can't see the visual result. They can't connect what they're doing to a real life solution. And a lot of, like C++, I feel like C++, Java, the backend languages are better for learning computer science because they have more deeper concepts built into them. So eventually I think it's good to learn those, but I just feel like JavaScript's a great place to start if you want to stay motivated, because a lot of people fall off, man. They're learning Java, but they don't get how to apply it to real life. They don't know, like, because like when teachers are teaching it, they're just trying to teach you loops, they're trying to teach you variables, but they can't get that far yet until they teach you a little further, and a lot of people fall off with interest because of that. So it's a blend between what you need to learn, and it's a blend between what's going to keep you interested. You got to learn what type of learner you are, because just because you're learning Java or Python or whatever, if you don't stay interested in it, doesn't matter how good the language is or whatever, because you didn't stay interested in it, you fell off. So yeah, would you recommend getting a degree or not? Man, that's a good question. I would say I wouldn't recommend it. I mean, no. Wait, no. Let me start over. I would say I would choose the path for you. So would I recommend getting a computer science degree? Yes, I would recommend it. But I also wouldn't say don't let that stop you from getting into programming. You can also do a boot camp. You can learn on YouTube. You can learn doing freelance and just build up your portfolio. There are different ways to get into it. Why do I recommend getting a computer science degree? Because you're going to be paying for it, so it's going to keep you motivated. You're going to have a teacher, so it's going to keep you motivated. You're going to have a structure, so it's going to keep you motivated. You're not going to be, because a lot of people have analysis paralysis. They're like, man, should I be doing this video? Should I be doing this course? Should I be doing this thing? Should I be doing this boot camp? If you go into school, you're on a train track to getting a job. Like, it just is what it is. And so the closest thing to going to school is a boot camp. It puts you sort of on a train track. But the advantage to school is you got that degree on your resume, which some jobs still kind of like perk up when they see that degree. So I will say that. So do I recommend going to school? Yes. Do you have to go to school is the better question. No. That's how I would answer that. So yeah, right. You don't need to go to school to get hired. Like, they will hire you with a boot camp. I've seen people get hired with totally different degree. Man, like half the people I work with don't have a computer science degree. They have other degrees. You can get hired with just experience, but you just got to get your foot in the door. And once you get that first job, somebody gives you a shot, you're in for good, man. You get 1 year of experience under your belt, 6 months of experience under your belt, it's off to the races, man. You'll be the dev for your whole life, or whatever you want to be for, whatever you want to be in tech for your whole life. One thing about becoming a programmer is once you become a programmer, now you're in tech, you can move to any other thing in tech like super easy, man. Like, programming is one of the hardest things to do in tech, and it's easily transferable to other things like QA, quality assurance, where you actually test the code instead of writing the code. You can move to product management, where you actually like writing down requirements about what the developers are going to code. You can move into management, where you're managing a team of developers, so you're more thinking about the tech and how to drive a development team forward. Or you can stay in coding and move up toward like being like a principal architect, where you're kind of like the leader in the industry or leader at the company of technical solutions. So Doing a lot of talking here, but man, it's some great questions here. Somebody on TikTok saying I'm struggling right now with coding, trying to figure out storing arrays in JavaScript while generating an HTML table. Storing arrays in JavaScript while oh yeah, actually in front end interviews, that's kind of like a common thing. They'll give you a data set and they'll like make you create some sort of UI component or visualization of the data set, or like they give you a file structure in JavaScript code or JavaScript object and make you render it like a file tree or something like that. I've had that in an interview before. So yeah, man, just DM me. I can try to give you some advice. I mean, right now, basically what you're doing, I would YouTube it, man. Google it. Like, there's so many resources to basically do what you're saying, like storing an array and generating an HTML table from it. You just have to learn the different pieces. You need to know what a JavaScript array is. You need to know what an HTML table is. You need to know how to dynamically create HTML from JavaScript. There's DOM manipulation. DOM manipulation means you can use JavaScript to change the HTML on a web page. So you need to learn kind of how that works. But YouTube is underrated, man. People kind of sleep on YouTube. I'm like, life in general is easier because of YouTube. Like, so much stuff you can YouTube. Like, I installed a backup camera in my car because of YouTube. Like, when I was young, man, I'm old. I'm like 30 something. So when I was young, we didn't have internet. We didn't have phones. If something didn't work and you didn't know it, and then you didn't have a book at your house, you just couldn't do it. Now the kids and the young folks and people trying to learn how to code, you ain't gotta go to school. You can just go on YouTube and learn how to code and make a good living from it. But it's all about the term of the mind and determination, man. That's the problem, is people not gonna do it. It's a lot of work to learn. Like, you have to stay dedicated and focused. What's your advice for interview coding questions? Practice. I would advise some structured learning to interview coding questions. If you're talking about leak code questions like this, I would advise getting a leak code account, of course. There's HackerRank out there. There's other ones, but I say leak code, man. I don't suggest, because leak code, I've seen leak code the companies take problems straight from leak code. HackerRank sometimes, but leak code, they're like pulling them straight from there. And I would suggest using some sort of Algo Monster. I'm gonna plug them. They ain't paying me. They should be paying me, but I'm gonna plug Algo Monster. Look up Algo Monster on YouTube. On Google. Algo Monster. It will teach you the concepts before it teaches you the problem. So now you learn the foundations of solving coding problems. You learn about solving problems for strings. You learn about how to use maps for stuff. You learn about binary search. You learn about depth first search versus breadth first search. You learn about how to manipulate trees. And I'm gonna start hitting y'all with some tree problems soon here. I did reverse a binary tree before on here, but I'm gonna start hitting y'all with some tree problems soon. Hopefully y'all, the people that are newer can understand. I know the people that y'all are doing it all the time. I know y'all gonna understand it. I'm not trying to say y'all won't. But I know, it's a hard thing to understand when you're first getting it. It was hard to understand for me how to do trees, for sure. Like, a tree is a visual structure, then you have to apply it to code and learn how to traverse it. It's a lot, man. It's hard to understand. How many problems do I need to do before I start applying for jobs? Projects I need to do. So at least 2. But it's about the quality more than the quantity, I'd say. I mean, I would say interviews are not gonna really, they're gonna care if you productize your projects, is what I would say. Like, put it up on a real domain, link it into your resume. That stands out so much more than you just going to YouTube and just copying a tutorial and then calling that a project. I'm not saying you're doing that, but I'm just saying for anybody on here, like, what I did is I created an app and put it on the App Store. It's called Snapita. I'm gonna do like a plug there. It's called Snapita. It just copies snippets of text, makes it easy for me to do my content on social media. I put it on the App Store, and I was in an interview. Every interview I go to, if it comes up, I say, "Hey man, I got an app on the App Store," and I relate it to my experience, whatever we're talking about. I don't just bring it up out of nowhere. But people, they're like, man, you got an app, oh, that's cool. I just went it down. They might some people actually download an interview. That goes so far because they're like, you got the determination and drive to release an app on your own to the app store. And like, it just goes so far. So that's why I would say I wouldn't worry about the quantity. I would worry about the quality. I would put more effort into doing like 2 apps that you actually put on a real domain and you productize them, rather than like trying to have 6 or 7 GitHub pages that because interviewers, they just don't got time to look at that. But they will go on their phone and look up an app, or they will go on their phone and look up a URL if they can just click on it real easily. So what's another way to get a first job without an internship? Without an internship, you can definitely get a job without an internship. Another way to, man, it's a good way to do it. It kind of piggybacking off the last thing I said. Is releasing projects. And I forgot to mention this. Do freelance work. That'll help you do real projects and stay motivated. If somebody's paying you for it and they're giving you a deadline, you can make some money from it if you want to charge them, but you might decide to do it for free. But then write a real contract with this person. Set up a real contract. Say, even if you're doing it for free, if it's a family member and you're doing it for free, hey, I'm going to build you a website for free. Or I'm going to build you this app or this service or this AI thing for free. Build it, but make a contract. So then now on your resume, you can say, I did freelance or I did contract work for this. And try to find your friends and family members with real companies. So then you can literally say, I did contract work for Joe's Coffee Shop. Put it on your resume. That helps you get a job, man. I did it before. When I first got in the industry, I didn't have any experience. I worked with one of my friends. He had an LLC. He had a real company. Now, it's not a fake company. He had a real company. But he was just like, hey, can you do this website and app for me? I wasn't thinking nothing of it. I did it. We set up a contract. He paid me. I ended up giving the money back because I ended up like partnering with them for like years after that. But anyway, I ended up putting that on my resume, putting them on as a reference. It was a real company. The app was on the App Store. The website was on, live. The first company, they went in the interview, they went and looked at the website and looked at the code behind it. It was like, dang, you're doing the same stuff we're doing here. And you did this by yourself? And I was like, yeah. And so I was like, I was getting killed on other questions in the interview. But because I had that experience, and this is just like some of my homeboys from school, but it was a real company and it was freelance work. You put that on your resume, it's a trick, man. It's a hack to get that first job that people don't really talk about. But you gotta be willing to work, man. It ain't no shortcut. It's not a shortcut. It's a trick or a hack or whatever, but it's not a shortcut. So you gotta do some real work because developers can see through when you just copy the project from somewhere or like a calculator app or some, to-do list app. It's great to do those things to learn, but developers can see through that, as far as like if they're looking at your resume, and recruiters can kind of see through that now too. So just make sure you're doing something that's valuable and actually putting some work in. Sorry I'm missing some of these questions. If you want to ask them again, you can. Do you use .NET for any of your stuff? I used .NET in my career for like 5 years straight. Not today because I moved into a different team, but .NET, C#, it's a powerful language, man. I mean, to me, I like it better than Java. It was kind of built based off Java, but it like enhanced it and made it easier. C# is a object-oriented, strongly typed language, and it's just so good to learn programming concepts, especially OOP, object-oriented programming, learning how inheritance works, learning how interfaces works, learning like reflection, like learning a lot of these deep concepts. Dependency injection. Maybe all sounds Greek, but man, you can learn that stuff in C# so easily because it's such a strict language, but it's strict in a good way. How do I learn coding? It's so hard and it seems impossible. I know it does, but I promise if you just get started and learn little by little, I promise it gets easier. You're never gonna know everything. I don't know everything. It's a reason I'm on here doing these problems. Like I don't know everything. I'm still learning. There's a lot of languages I don't know. I actually don't know Python. I actually never done Python before. I've done all these different languages, but I've never done Python. So if somebody came in here talking about I know about it because I've been in the industry a long time. But if somebody came here trying to give me Python questions, I wouldn't even know how to answer them. So nobody ever knows everything. Just get started somewhere. And I promise it gets easier, because what happens is you learn one thing and the skills transfer to another. You learn one language and those skills transfer to another language. It makes it easier, and then it just snowballs. And the next thing you know, you got a job, and then you start learning at hyper speed when you get on the job. Internship, a full-time job. Oh, I think somebody responding to a question or asking a question there. Facebook, tons of competition. Yeah. Someone wants to become a front-end developer. Do you have a roadmap to where to learn? Oh, yeah, man. Look up roadmap.sh, I think, is the website. Roadmap.sh, I think. Let me see if I can try to look it up on here. Roadmap.sh, I think. Oh, shoot, I put it wrong. I hope I don't get some weird website. I think it's this. Yeah. Roadmap.sh, and then go to, so anybody on here that's looking for front end, back end, DevOps. So the person that also asked how to learn how to code or where to get started, if you're having trouble learning where to get started, come to this. This will give you a good clue. Click front end, and it gives you a nice visual, because what I like about this is it starts you at the internet. If you're gonna start to be a front end dev, you need to know how the internet works. How does it? Can you answer the question of how does a browser display a web page when it gets it? How does the internet work? How do domain name work? What is hosting? What is HTTP? It starts you out so basic. Then you get into HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Now it makes more sense to you because you know how the internet works. You know what a browser is looking for when it displays a web page. What's going on behind that? So that's why I like this roadmap thing, because then it's gonna give you resources on how to really get started. And you don't have to use these resources, but just seeing this, now you know what to Google. Now you know what to look up. Now you know where to start. HTML, CSS, JavaScript. So I've actually only looked at the front end one. I wonder what the back end one looks like. I'm probably I should be making a TikTok out of this, the whole thing right now. But people made TikToks out of this roadmap HS before. But yeah, even on the back end, you need to know how to, because now everything's internet connected. Back end, machine learning, everything. Everything's connected to the internet. So you need to learn how the internet works. You need to learn how web services communicate with each other. You need to learn how websites communicate with their back end web services. Somebody said HTML is not programming. HTML, yeah, it's maybe not a programming language, but it's part of front end development. If you're gonna be a front end developer, JavaScript's the programming language, but you need to know HTML and CSS because they're the presentation layer. HTML's the hyper. So I don't even remember what the acronym stands for anymore. I used to. Yeah, hypertext markup language. You need to know how to you need to know how to present stuff to a user. So who cares if it's a programming language or not? It's part of web development. But yeah, it's not a programming language for sure. So yeah. Tips for data structures and algorithms. I think I kind of answered this one before, but I would, instead of trying to do 1,000 problems, try to focus on the concepts. Let me go to Algo Monster and show that off instead of repeating the same thing. This is a paid thing, so you have to pay for this, but I promise it's worth it. So, why is it asking me, trying to give me a quiz, man? And I don't even know if I'm supposed to be showing this because it's a paid tool, but I'm going to show this part of it. So hopefully they don't try to get my video taken down or something, but I think this part is free. So what it does is, and I haven't even finished Algo Monster, but I did as much as I wanted to. So it teaches you these concepts of data structures and algorithms, and it's going to teach you the concept first, and then it's going to just keep making you do problems in that concept till it digs into your head. That was the better way to learn for me, because when I learn these concepts, now when I go back to LeetCode and I see a problem with that concept, I can identify the type of problem. And once you identify the type of problem, there's a solution for that problem that you've memorized. So this gets you to memorize all these different approaches in basically tool set, a tool. It'll fill your toolbox with ways to answer, like how do I do binary search. There's a way to memorize how to do it. Backtracking, there's this formula, there's a template to backtracking. Breadth first search, depth first search. I can't say that junk for some reason, but there's templates for how to code these. You need to memorize these because as the problems get harder and harder, you got to know how to do these solutions kind of like in your sleep, honestly. So I would go to something like Algo Monster. There's Algo Expert out there. I like Algo Monster because Algo Monster actually tells you, there's somewhere in here where it like tells you, I think this is free, so I don't think I'm giving away their money, their paid stuff. I think part of their stuff is free. But it's telling you what Amazon asks, like what types of problems, the patterns. You're learning the patterns first before you just try to do 1,000 problems. Algomonster.com is a website, and it's going to tell you the top problems overall. And like it's going to tell you for Amazon what the top problems are. It gives you like a breakdown. And so it gives you these different breakdowns of categories. And dang, I'm not even showing this on the screen, right? But it gives you the breakdowns of the categories. And then you can go in here and they're going to teach you on this other side. They're going to teach you each category. And because they know which categories the companies ask most, you can order your learning by the most common ones that you need to know and stop trying to just do all these problems of stuff that like the interviews might not even ask. Like dynamic programming is very difficult, but it's only literally asked by Google most of the time. Like some companies ask it, but it's like one of the rarest parts. But a lot of people get stuck on trying to learn it. If you're not trying to go to Google, then you probably don't even need to really worry about it. So, but like stuff like depth first search, you need to learn that because it's big on here. Like it's huge, it's the biggest one. Basic programming, but I'm not gonna like keep harping on this thing. Like y'all can go and look at it. But I'm probably gonna clip this out of this live and make it into his own TikTok video for sure because this is good content that I should be trying to make content out of. But anyway, let me see if there's any more questions. I don't know how long I've been on here so far. Because I guess I'll probably end it soon. Yeah, somebody on YouTube. I got a comment on YouTube. Definitely tried to do a boot camp that had job placement at the end. Yeah, they did not teach HTML, CSS, or JavaScript, but I needed to know them. I needed to know then to build a full stack component for the client I was hired at. Yeah. So some interviews are just going to say build a UI component or build a full stack component and not even ask a data structure algorithm. And if you want to avoid these type of problems, there's a GitHub thing. I think it's like coding without whiteboards or something like that. Because it used to be when you did these problems before the pandemic, you actually would go into their offices and do it on a whiteboard. I'm glad you don't have to do that crap anymore. I guess maybe some companies are doing it if they're back in the offices. But this will give you a list of companies that don't do coding. So this is like adverse to what I'm teaching and what I was teaching at the start of this live. But there's a bunch of companies. I mean, there's so many. I know y'all can't see this, but just go to it yourself. Google it. I'm not going to give you the domain. It's on GitHub. It's hiring without whiteboards. Hiring without whiteboards. So just look that up and it'll give you a bunch of companies that don't do any leak code problems. So I know I'm doing leak code problems on here. Not every company asks leak code problems. The first company I worked for ever didn't ask any leak code problems. A lot of companies don't ask leak code problems, but what I'm saying is if you want to go for these big guys, Netflix, the FANG companies, Facebook, now it's Meta, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, Google, Microsoft, Airbnb, what's some other big ones? Uber, Twitter, all these big, huge companies that you know the names of, a lot of them are going to ask data structures and algorithms problems. Now, there are 1,000 other companies out there that don't ask these problems. Like, there's just 1,000. Like, and there's some of them you know the name of. Like, yes, I don't know if Home Depot does or not. I never interviewed with them. But you just think about the different levels of tech companies. There's companies that have tech departments, and there's tech companies. Netflix is a tech company. Home Depot is a home improvement company that has a tech department. So you can go work for a big name company. You can work for Delta Airlines. Delta Airlines is an airline. They have a tech department where you can work as a developer or whatever. So there's different levels. Then there's a lot of companies, like millions of companies you never heard of that don't ask them either. So, just ask your recruiter if they ask that, if you want to try to avoid that. It is very possible to get a good job, without doing any LeetCode problems. There's some developers that just refuse to do them because they don't believe in them. And I don't blame them, really. But I've chosen to embrace them and try to learn them, because I kind of got a thing. I used to be that way. I used to be like, I'm not learning them. I had worked like 5 years without really learning them, except for college. I did learn them in college, but then I forgot who's going to remember the stuff in college? I learned them in college and then I forgot it, just like you forget everything else in college that you don't need, that you don't use every day in your job. And then at one point I got prideful and I was like, dude, man, like, I'm not about to just have this thing that I just can't learn. Like, you're not going to tell me, I'm not going to just be this thing that's just that I just think is too hard for me to learn. So I just went and learned them. And I've gotten offers from like some big companies, from like FANG companies. I got offers from like companies, huge companies, know the name of. I'm not going to put all that out there, but I've gotten some offers, some really nice offers, but I decided to stay at where I'm at. So yes, cool stuff. Company I work for didn't give me a coding challenge, but I did have to demo a personal product. See, I love interviews like that, man. You get to talk about what you're passionate about, what you just did to a technical level. I had some interviews like that too. I had interviews where they just asked me to build UI components, especially front-end interviews. I love those interviews. Those can be harder than the LeetCode interviews, where they sit there and say, hey, we want you to build a like button from Facebook. We want you to build it from scratch right now without using a framework. Use pure HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Build it from scratch. You can't run it. Explain it. You got to find your own bugs. You can't test it. You can't run it. Find your own bugs. That junk can be hard, but to me, it's better than LeetCode problems. Is math and physics important to coding? Depends on what you're working on, but in general, no, you don't need it to be a coder. So it's not important to coding in general. It depends on the specialization as well as the company and the work that you're doing. So yeah, if you're working for a company that is making math tools, then yeah, it probably is important. If you're working for a company that has something to do with physics, like you're working on some software that relates to physics, then yeah. But if you're working for I don't know, like Uber or something, like you probably don't need math and physics for if you're building like the front end of the mobile app. Like, it's no math and physics there. Now, if you're building the telemetry or whatever, I don't know, you're building like the way the cars know where each other at, or you're doing some kind of crap like that, then yeah, probably so. It just depends. Subfields, but yeah, I think in general the misconception is that you need physics or math. Mostly it's math. What people say that you need it to be a programmer. No, you don't. So, in general, it just depends on what you're trying to learn. But they're gonna teach you the math. I mean, I just don't. It's not a lot of jobs that's gonna basically be. If you're a good programmer, they're just gonna, hey man, you can't. Like, most of the time, they're gonna have tooling that helps you with the math. Like, they're not gonna just have you there doing math problems. They have tools that help you do the math, like calculators or algorithms that you can run. Like, if they have computers that can do the job of a human, why would they have you doing it? Like, it just doesn't make sense. That's the kind of crap you do in school. It's like answering these crazy math problems by hand. Like, it's just no point in doing it when we have computers, when you're in a tech company. Because you get it wrong and waste the company millions of dollars when they just could let a computer do it. For coding, it makes no difference. You develop solutions. Yeah, you need domain knowledge. Yeah, it just depends, man. And then if you're doing gaming, especially, it's a lot of like graphics design and stuff like that. Like, yeah, you're probably gonna need like to know vectors and do like math for like developing graphics for video games. That's one place I've seen like math kind of like be a little more important. Maybe in the financial space where you're crunching numbers and stuff like that. Maybe in crypto maybe in machine learning and AI, where like there may be some math involved with some of the algorithms and things that are being used there. But there are like there's so many jobs in programming that like I worked 10 years and not have anything above a high school math level. Like because I work in chat and messaging, it's all conversational. There's no crazy math. It just depends on your domain, like somebody said in here. Sting Kings, I think, said that, so thank you. Previous jobs doing rocket orbits. Okay, man, yeah, you need physics, dude. Like, damn, you're a rocket scientist. Like, you know how they say it ain't rocket science. Well, yeah, it's rocket science for you because you're doing rocket orbits. So, he said need physics and math. Currently, don't use it at all. Oh, so you did need it at the job. Yeah, man, shoot. So yeah, if you're working for NASA, then yeah, man, but that's like 1 in a million, man. That's like 1 in a million job. You know, there's so many other jobs you don't need that. Yeah, AR. So yeah, AR. I kind of think of AR as like video game stuff, even though it doesn't have to be. When I said the video game comment, this part. I feel like it's like the same thing where you have graphics because you're trying to like place graphics, augment reality with graphics like you would in a video game or 3D. Modeling and stuff like that, collision, like stuff hits each other, and so yeah. But yeah, man, robotics, yeah, control, like all that kind of stuff, of course. So yeah, thanks. Yeah, man. So yeah, this was a really good conversation. I didn't expect to be on here. I probably spent more time answering questions and talking to you guys than I did actually on the problem itself. Let me see if I got any comments on Instagram. I don't think I got any comments there. Most of it's on TikTok. So for anybody that's ever wanted to catch me on another channel, I'm on Twitch live at the same time. I'm on YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. I'm on all these channels live at the same time. I also post random content on them for programming and stuff like that. Programming content, not random. Where I post stuff like this, programming jokes, informational stuff, helpful things in the industry. It's my goal to just build my brand, of course, but then also help people for free get into coding and learn more about coding and stuff like that. So if you want to follow me and all that stuff, please feel free on any channel. If you're watching me on one channel right now and you ever want to watch me on another channel, I'm basically on everything and I go live on everything and I repost all my stuff to everything else. So I know how some people are like, you might see me on YouTube, but you're like more of a TikTok guy, then just go find me on TikTok. So yeah, anyway, somebody said I came from Twitch to see the comments here. Yeah, the comments, man, popping in TikTok more than anything, man. I don't know what TikTok algorithm's just different, man. Just like way more people join the live, way more comments. I don't get it, man. But I'm trying to grow on the other channels too. But I would never neglect TikTok because I get the most love there. So but yeah, anyway, I think I'm probably gonna TikTok stream is nicer though. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, TikTok is bad. You know why TikTok is bad? Because I don't got a stream key. I gotta use my phone for TikTok. All the rest of the channels I'm actually streaming directly into, but except TikTok. Because TikTok, once I guess I gotta get to a certain number of followers or something, man. So shoot me up so I can get a stream key so the TikTok stream will be clear. But anyway, I think I'm gonna probably jump off of here because it's gonna take me a while to cut this video down and try to repost it and cut it down into these different tidbits that I offer. But yeah, like I said, please follow me, DM me if you have questions about your career or about learning to code or learning to get into tech in general. Follow me for more content like this. I do these lives at least once a week. I'm trying to move up to twice a week. I post helpful content for you guys, for programmers and alike. And I just want to be a community, man. So just like hit me up, and DM me or just let me know whatever you want me to post in the future. And I will try to include it into my content. And I just like to learn about what y'all doing. Even if you want to hit me up and just say, hey, I'm working on this and, blah, blah, blah. It's inspiring to me, man, because I still got goals. I got a lot I want to do, 10 years in the game, and I feel like it's a lot of aspects I'm just getting started on. So I get inspired by y'all all the time because the crazy part is new people come in the industry, the stuff it took me 5 years to get to, it takes them like 1 year to get to. Because that's just how the world works. World works when people come behind you, they get to the stuff quicker. A lot of us older devs, we start gatekeeping and getting mean about it. We start keeping the information ourselves. And we're like, man, we don't want y'all to, yeah, somebody said it, 40 years in the game, Steam Kings, yeah. And people like start you probably seen people start gatekeeping and they don't want to let people into the industry and they feel like they got to try to hold them back. It took me 5 years, so you got to take 5 years to get it. That's not how anything works. That's not how any industry works. It always gets better because the doors are open for the new people coming in. And so I try not to do that. But what ends up happening is people come in and they advance faster than I did at that time because they have better tools. They have YouTube. They have these things that I've just showed, these roadmaps and stuff like that. They have stuff I didn't have, so they advance faster. And I end up learning stuff from people that are, new 1 year in. And I'm fine with that, because I have to. That's the thing about this profession is that if you stop learning, you're lost. You have to keep learning. And some people think it's a bad thing, but that's the thing. You'll become a dinosaur if you don't keep learning, don't keep pushing forward. So I know I'm talking a long time, so I'm gonna hop off of here. I appreciate everybody that jumped on the stream and all the people that, especially people that stayed on here commenting crazy. Steam King still on here strong. Yeah, and a bunch of other people that commented that I forget the names, but like appreciate you joining. Please join me next time. Thanks for all the comments. Thanks for all the love. And yeah, we'll be back soon. And I'll be posting comment in between until then. So appreciate y'all. I'm going to hop off of here now. Y'all have a good night wherever you are. Thanks.